All right. At this time, the mayor will call to order the regular city council meeting for 6 p.m. Tuesday, February the 14th, 2003, in the city council chambers, 201 East Nash Street, Terrell, Texas. We have with us District 2, Grady Simpson, District 3, Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem. We have District 4, Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, and we have District 5, Andrea Reese. We do have a quorum present, so we'll continue with our meeting. At this time, Grady, would you lead us in invocation? If you would, remain standing for the pledges.
May we bow our heads, please. Father God, we come giving you thanks for bringing us here once again. We thank you for keeping us safe. We thank you for guiding us and helping us with our decisions. We ask, God, that you would be with those who have suffered tragedy, unlike us. Those individuals over in Turkey who have lost probably more citizens than we've had here in Terrell. We pray for them and for their recovery, for their healing. We pray for Ukraine. We pray for our president. We pray for the whole nation and ask God that you would help us to heal and build and bring your name glory. All in Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Our next item on the agenda is mayor and council community recognitions and events. I do want to wish all of Terrell happy Valentine's Day. I want to thank the council for being here today. We're going to try to get through this agenda as quickly as we can. Also, wanted to take a moment and tie in the Super Bowl with the city of Terrell. Some of you may not know this, but Nick Bolton, who was the linebacker for San Francisco, the winning Super Bowl team, has a tie to the city of Terrell. Does anybody know what that is?
Carlos Bolden, class of 1989, is his daddy.
There you
I had
go.
2 classes with him, smart guy.
And he worked for American National Bank
American
after he
National
attended
Bank.
college. So congratulations to the Bolton family. I know Carlos is proud. I know Nick is happy. And maybe he'll bring that Super Bowl ring up here and let us look at it someday, right? And then also, we are going to do a proclamation in honor of Black History Month. So at this time, I'll read the proclamation. It's from the Office of the Mayor of the City of Terrell, and it reads, whereas Black History Month is an annual observance originating in the United States, and whereas the precursor to Black History Month was created in 1926 when historian Carter G. Woodson and the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History designated the second week of February as Negro History Week because it coincided with Abraham Lincoln's birthday on February the 12th and abolitionist Frederick Douglass's birthday on February the 14th, both of whom black communities had celebrated since the late 19th century. And whereas in 1969, Kent State students and teachers conducted the first celebration of Black History Month, and whereas during the next decade, the movement continued to grow with President Gerald Ford officially recognizing it in 1976. And whereas Terrell has been fortunate to have a long history of influential black leaders in many fields, including medicine, athletics, entertainment, business, and public service. And whereas dozens of black educators were instrumental in improving educational opportunities for local students, including W.H. Burnett, whose 44-year career with Terrell ISD as a teacher, principal, and band director earned him the distinction of a Texas State Historical Marker and the naming of a campus in his honor. And whereas Herman Furlow Jr., whose 34-year tenure as a TISD teacher, counselor, coach, and principal, was recognized by naming a middle school after him to pay tribute to his legacy. And whereas Mayor Francis Anderson also served as an educator in Terrell ISD for 22 years before changing the careers and paving the way for future public servants after being elected as District 2 council member and later as the city's first black mayor in 2002. And whereas the city supports TISD's continued efforts to pay tribute to the contributions of these influential leaders with a month-long celebration culminating with the Terrell ISD Black History Month program celebrating diversity, culture, and legacy on February the 27th. And whereas Terrell is home to Southwestern Christian College, one of 9 historically black colleges and universities in the state of Texas, now therefore I, Rick Carmona, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor and on behalf of the Terrell City Council, do hereby proclaim February as Black History Month in the city of Terrell and encourage all citizens to join together in paying tribute to the black leaders, organizations, and institutions which have played an integral role in the establishment and development of our city. And in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the corporate seal of City of Terrell, Texas to be affixed this the 14th day of February of 2023. So we look forward to having a great month of celebrations throughout this community. Does anybody have any other recognitions at this time?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes.
In regard to Councilwoman Stephanie Holmes-Thomas, recognition about Marie White, who turned 103. We read the proclamation for her on Sunday. Bethlehem Baptist Church was very grateful for the city of Terrell and bringing that proclamation forth. And so this lady here, 103 years old, in her right mind. I was asking her questions. She was answering back. I mean, she could walk at 103. You know, she's born in 1920. The average lifespan for a female that was born in 1920 is 56.6 years. So that means in 1974, pretty much everybody she knew was probably gone.
Yeah.
And by the grace of God, she is still here. You know, she was in her 40s when I was born, for crying out loud. You know. Yeah. So, but anyway, just want to make special recognition of that in Bethlehem Baptist Church appreciation for what the city of Terrell.
Yeah, I want to thank you for reading the proclamation. Did you sing happy birthday to her, Councilman?
No, so I leave that up to my mom. I wasn't blessed to sing. Yeah.
All right. Anyone
Mayor,
else? Yes.
More of a notice for our community members. So starting next Monday, February the 20th, please note that on Highway 34 between I-20 and Airport Road, there will be lane closures due to TxDOT doing work in that area due to different just an regular road repairs and overlay work that they will be doing. So be cautious as you're heading that way and know that you may have to go a little slower or take a different route in that area.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. Anyone else?
Just a quick reminder that the Kiwanis Pancake Day is next Tuesday, the 21st. It's from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at Rockwall and Bren Church of Christ. And the cost for a ticket is $10, all you can eat.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to hear remarks from visitors. We have two, Michelle Frazier, right? Michelle Frazier, if you would, please.
Good evening. How are you guys doing today?
Wonderful.
I was recently here January 1st, 2023. And not January 1st, in January on the 17th. Because I was having problems with the sewer line at one residence and flooding at another residence, which was at Campbell Street. And the issue is still consisting. And I would just, I guess for a part of my, acknowledgement to you or words I need to say to you is the same letter that I gave to my tenants, and I'm gonna just read it and be through with it. As each of you are aware, January 1st, I recently officially became the owner / proprietor of your rental residence, at which time, after receiving ownership, I learned quickly that our community street, sewer, drainage system, and residential flooding has been an ongoing issue. The deficiency of our pipelines in our community is in desperate need of an upgrade. So I initiated to reach out to my community leaders, my neighbors, my tenants, in order to gain an insight and seek a resolution. Sadly, I discovered that these ongoing problems is not only the residents' problem, but it's our neighborhood problems. Our neighbors have been having has been burdened with the same problem, seeking urgency to resolve these unsanitary and hazardous conditions. Our location, our personal location is at 409 West Cottage Street, Terrell, Texas, and 510 Campbell Street. On January the 17th, 2023, at 201 East Nash Street, Terrell, Texas, 75160, I personally attended and expressed frustration with the feces exposure, residential damage, flooding, and unsafe conditions through photos and tenant work orders with the mayor, Rick Carmona, city councilor, Mike Sims, our city legal advisors, and the district council members were in attendance. At a later date, I spoke with Mike McKeskey, the city engineer, hoping to promptly resolve the problem, which is currently affecting our homes, home interior, exterior, and expediting future foundation problems to their homes and to my rental property due to the lack of urgency by the City of Terrell representatives and the staff to fix broken city equipment, avoid upgrading overdue residential pipelines, and tabling the necessary repairs needed to deplete the extensive and anticipated foreseen expenditures, when in reality, overall, our health, homes, and communities is being affected daily. Therefore, I am humbly writing you this letter to assure you that I am expeditiously trying to seek help from our city representatives and staff by attending another city council meeting tonight, February the 14th, 2023, and readdress the concerns with more photos. After investigating and being placed on a routine sewer blowout, I discovered, again, this is not a residence problem. It is a community problem. I told them your surrounding neighbors have experienced and accept and have expressed the same residential flooding, the unsanitary conditions, and the hazards issues with no sympathy from the city leaders or staff. Thank you in advance for your patience and support with this matter. If you have any assistance, please contact me, JMV Reynolds, P.O. Box 521, Terrell, Texas, 75160, telephone number 214-554-8392. And along with this letter, ever since the last time I've seen y'all, we're on a routine blowout, and still we have had 3 other incidents. Last week we had an incident at 409 Cottage. Last night I was up at 10:30 and 11 o'clock going over to my tenant's apartment because they were flooded out. Then this morning, because of the rain in Campbell Street, around 8:30 this morning, I was called out because their line was flooding, and it was coming up so much into the house until the guy that lived there had the equipment to go and pump it. But what I have here, and I'm gonna leave these with y'all with these pictures once again. The house itself, this is supposed to be the front yard. This is supposed to be the back of the yard. This is supposed to be the house, the way in between the house and the next door neighbor's house. Again, the front of the house. We are dealing with this every single time that it rains. And the lady that stays there, she said that she thought that the city was going to come out and do something, but near there, they did not dig out any of the covets. They did not dig out any of the ditches. I have pictures of it here. The ditches where she stayed has not been cleaned out. No ditches have been dug to help the water flow. It's ridiculous. And at 409 West Cottage Street, in the restroom, my siding is coming up. The flooring that I just put down is coming up. And last night when the men came out, the water was not coming up out of the sewer drainage. It was not coming up out of there. But they went on and ran a hose to see how far it went. And the 2 guys that came out last night, when they put the water hose in the hole, ran it all the way through, okay, and it stopped. The guy that was standing in the street, he told the other fella, he said, hey, hold it right there where it's wet and start pulling it out. And when he pulled it out, it stopped in the middle of Cottage Street. Something needs to be done. This is ridiculous. And I thank y'all for hearing me. And here's a letter of this and the letter that I wrote to my tenants.
All right, thank you for your comments. If you would get those letters and photos to our staff, please. Next is Debbie Love. All right, Cove.
She's here to support me.
Oh, okay.
Because she's witnessed
Okay.
the same thing.
So-
The city not doing anything. They're
Well,
doing
ma'am,
it.
you've had your 3 minutes, so
Okay.
it's Debbie, if you would love, if you'd like to. Yeah? Okay, all right, thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes. It's discuss and consider the minutes from the regular city council meeting on February the 7th of 2023. Next item, that's item 6.1. Is there a motion on item 6.1?
Motion to approve item 6.1 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Mary Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. We have a second from Andrea Reese, District 5, to approve the minutes from the regular city council meeting on February the 7th as presented of 2023. Is there any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is item 7.1, discuss and consider zoning board of adjustments and appointments.
Mayor, I would like to make a motion to postpone this item.
Item 7.1. We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion from Andrea Reese, District 5, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to postpone the appointments for the zoning board of adjustments. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is item 8, discuss housing affordability study example. Mike, Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, the Texas A&M University Real Estate Research Center and Dr. Claire Losey there contacted us earlier today to let us know that she'd had a last-minute conflict come up and she was not going to be able to present this item for us. We'll get her rescheduled as quickly as possible. I would say that the item that we put into your packet is, generally speaking, the type of study that she is recommending for the city of Terrell. So you can see that's a Corpus Christi housing affordability study. I've reviewed that. I think it's exactly the right type of study for us. They've got 5 or 6 different ways of doing these studies. And when Dr. Losey and I talked about it, we felt like this was the right one to move forward on. She's waiting to get started until she presents to you guys. Frankly, I think it's probably best if I let her get started on some of the preliminary data work while she's finding a time to come to present to you. And we'll just get her here as soon as we can.
All right, thank you. So we'll wait and reschedule the discussion on the housing affordability study. Next item on the agenda is discuss quiet zone, complete street project updates. This is Kimberly Horn. And this Nathan, right?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you, Mayor Council. Nathan Ante with Kimberly Horn. Thank you all again for having me. I promise I'll keep this brief. Really just wanted to give you a snapshot of what work we've been doing and give you a quick summary of a project review committee meeting that we held back in December, and we've got another one in March. And also give you all a tee up for the open house that's scheduled for a couple weeks to talk specifically about complete streets and quiet zones. And then really just here to get any feedback that you'd like us to consider as we move forward. So I guess taking a step back, if you all remember, the project review committee is really a technical advisory committee made up of a number of different stakeholders. And they're tasked with helping us formulate what we're going to do with the streets and what we're going to do to the crossings to make them quiet zone compliant and safe. So we had a meeting December 5th. We also presented a lot of this same information that you'll see tonight to the Paddock Board on January 27th. And that was really just a summary of what we heard from the PRC, and then also to get the Paddock Board's feedback. And then we've got another meeting on March 2nd, which happens to be 4 days after, or a couple days after our open house. So the intent for that next meeting is just to share some of the visualizations and some of the ideas that we have on what these streets could look like, and also get their feedback so we can keep moving. So a little bit of background that we shared with the project review committee was sharing all these other projects that y'all have in your downtown area so they could see how the complete streets and the quiet zones tied into that. So we walked them through the South Alley, the Town Square, the parking lots, the Bowser Circle, a lot of different projects in the downtown. And then we focused on the downtown quiet zones, what needed to be done there. And then we focused really on the streets, and we broke them up into a couple different areas. The US 80 we've got in purple, what we're referring to as the transition zones. Focused a lot of time on the core zone, and that's what we'll show you today. And then Spur 226. Again, focusing on the core zone was the bulk of our time. This is a listing of some desired outcomes that we shared with the committee and the Paddock Board that we've heard from y'all and from the community over the years and through the process of your downtown master plan on what we wanted the downtown to become. So we wanted to make sure the project review committee saw these. And then also we, with the city staff, developed some draft guiding principles that we presented to the project review committee so that these would help us determine what we could do to the downtown. So things like engage with stakeholders to determine public support was something we felt was really important. Improve mobility, safety, comfort, access for all modes of travel. Really using these so that when we did decide, we can point back to these and make sure we were aligned. We also walked through our scope and timeline from the consultant's perspective, what y'all hired us to do, just so the committee would be aware. So some of the progress that we made to date, the boundary survey, we've done all the survey on the ground, field survey, so we can start with the foundation to develop construction drawings off of. We also made some quiet zone recommendations, and we've engaged the railroad, and we've set up some diagnostic meetings, and we've shared the concept plans with them, and we've priced them. So those diagnostic meetings, it's a 2-day event that's April 18th and 19th that we'll spend here all day with the railroad, walking the corridor and evaluating what we're proposing to make sure they're in line with what they want. We've also done a lot of traffic engineering studies to determine what was feasible. We didn't want to propose options that just from a traffic standpoint wouldn't work, so we've done that. We refined some options. Again, we presented to the Paddock Board, and then we've been preparing for this open house, which is February 28th from 4 to 7. Again, we summarized all of the quiet zone improvements at each of the crossings, focused in on downtown, and then we shared these pictures with the review committee just to let folks know what these roadways look like today. And of course, Spur 226, not a lot of sidewalks, a lot of driveways, not a lot of landscaping. So there's a lot of opportunity to make improvements there. And then same thing with the east side of downtown and the west side of downtown, excluding the downtown core zone, where you didn't have medians in places. You may have shoulders, again, lots of driveways, a lot of utilities, lots of room for improvement. So we shared what all of these could look like, a 4-lane divided roadway, which gave opportunity for wider sidewalks and landscaping and trees and amenities like in those areas. And then the bulk of our meeting was really focused on the core zone, and this is what we're preparing for the February 28th meeting. We've got a lot of visualizations and graphics and representative downtown photographs that we're going to share with Raylan on Thursday and then with the community on the 28th to show what this part of the downtown could look like. And so we shared what it does look like today. There's a lot going on. There's 4 lanes, there's a median, there's left turn lanes, there's parking, there's very narrow sidewalks and not a lot of landscaping. You've got a constrained space, so a lot of things to balance there. So we developed 5 different options that we shared with the committee and with the Paddock Board, and we'll share with the public. And The options A and B are very similar. The only difference is one has parking, one does not. And A is basically what you have today. It's 2 lanes, it's with parking, it's with a median, and it leaves very little room for sidewalks. And that, frankly, didn't spend a whole lot of time on this option because going back to the guiding principles, it doesn't provide the walkability or some of those desired outcomes. So didn't spend a lot of time there. Did spend a little more time on option B, which is very much the same. You still got a median, you still have left turn lanes, you still have 2 lanes in each direction, but you remove the parking. So that's the differences between those two. And then options C and D are very similar in that one has parking, one does not, but the difference with these 2 options is you've removed that center turn lane. You've removed the left turn lane. So what that does is gives more space to have sidewalks, and you could also do parking, but that also comes with some challenges from a circulation standpoint. And then the last option that we spent a little bit of time on, there we go, is the one-way couplet, which would convert Nash to one-way eastbound. Westbound, and US 80 would be one-way eastbound. And this obviously has the most impact, but one of the decision points is economic development opportunities. So this one would really take the longest and probably cost the most, but does have a pretty significant economic development potential. And again, we shared what Nash Street looks like today. A lot of challenges. Nash Street's not a TxDOT corridor. A lot of utilities there that we need to find another place for. So those were the 5 options that we've developed some renderings and some representative projects. The one-way couplets, Louisville is a really good example. And we put these together on boards to share with the public with Raylan on Thursday and then the public on the 28th. And really the format of the open house, and Ian's here today. He's been out in the neighborhood today and will be leading up to the open house, but afterwards, we're really just looking for feedback. We're going to present these 5 different options. It's a 3-hour just come and go open house format with a presentation at 4:15 and at 6:15 that's intended to just be a welcome, some introductions, explain what the limits of the project are, what it is we're looking at, and then describe what is a complete street, what does that mean, and what is a quiet zone, what does that mean. And then we're going to show each of the 5 different options and then let them know where to go to provide input, which will be available at the open house to answer questions. And there'll be some online surveys, and Ian will be out getting more feedback. So
a couple of questions. The open house, February the 28th. I would encourage council to go and observe, right? Not engage, but listen to what the community's discussion points are and what option they're leaning towards. However, I do need to ask our legal, I want to protect the council, and I don't want them to be in trouble because they have 3 or more members. Do we need to post that we're going to be at this public meeting and make it a meeting just so that we're covered under the open meetings?
Absolutely. Mr. Mayor, you would need to, if a quorum or more is present,
right,
it would need to be posted as such.
I think in the abundance of caution, we go ahead and post something for the city council so that they don't feel I know I would. If I walked in and there was 2 or 3, I would probably leave. I don't want them to do that. And again, we're just there to observe and to listen what the public has to say. But if someone engages you, then you don't need to worry about discussing city business at that point. So
just
maybe
as
better option.
a point of clarity there, Mayor, we can certainly post it. We've done that before. So for example, with some of our comprehensive plan open houses a few years back, we certainly did that exact same thing. If we post for a 4 o'clock meeting and there is a quorum there, then you'll have to have the formality of gaveling in and opening it as a city council meeting. If you happen to have an hour go by and have no quorum, and then at 5 o'clock you end up with a quorum, then we'll have to make sure we do the right procedure at that time as well. So it'll be a little bit of an issue to manage, but we'll get with Greg and we'll make sure we manage through that.
Okay.
I'll try to be present also if need be, Mr. Mayor, to assist if I needed to.
Well, you know what? It's one thing to get secondhand information from what happens at the meeting. Not that I don't, Ian, I know you're good. You're going to tell us what, and Raylan, and I know we're okay there, but I just, there's something about being in a meeting and Nathan watching how it progresses and see where everybody's leaning. I think that gives you some good insight as we move forward with this process. Does anybody have any questions for Nathan?
Are these the only two forums you're gonna have? Are there any other ways that we're gonna try to connect with our community members?
Yeah, Ian, do you want to?
We always like listening to present.
Council, it's great to see you guys again. Yes, we are planning multiple ways to engage with the community. We are making a website strictly dedicated to the Downtown Complete Streets project. That should be up the first day after this meeting. We'll also be doing in-person surveys and online surveys, which will be available on the City of Terrell website and the Downtown Complete Streets website. So every citizen has an opportunity to make their opinion known, and we'll compile that information and give it all to you as well.
Okay.
Remember that there'll be work that the engineering staff does after the public meeting. They'll go to the one that's listed here as the PRC meeting. That's the Project Review Committee with TxDOT and North Central Texas Council of Governments and Union Pacific Railroad. This railroad diagnostic meeting is an important part of the process. But after what's shown on this page, there will be an additional round of open house available for the public later on. Just didn't list it here because we're not quite sure when exactly that will be based on how much time the feedback between the PRC, the railroad diagnostic, the February public engagement, all of that's a round of input that we'll be dealing with, and then we'll be out to the public again after that.
We have been hired to do 2 additional public meetings. So all these public meetings will be available virtually and in person. We're also going to be recording these meetings and putting them on the City of Terrell and Downtown Complete website. So even if somebody can't come that day, they will be able to refer to the website and watch the meeting and be up to date as possible. So we're just trying to make sure if a citizen wants to be informed and involved, they have every opportunity to do so.
Can you go back to the slide that has the invitation on there? Where's the location?
The French Soiree, right now.
Okay.
Mayor, we also were able to get those invitations inserted in this month's water bill as well. So those are going to be mailed out with the bill also.
No, that's not a very big building. It's going to be pretty tight in there.
More the merrier.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying,
And we've been doing a lot of canvassing. We've done all of the businesses on Moore.
so they're all aware of it.
They're all aware. We've done 6 neighborhoods so far. So you should see our team out here throughout the week. We just started on Monday, but we've done about 71 businesses so far and about 300 homes.
Have we reached out to any of the churches?
Yes, we are sending email blast out as well. And so I've emailed all of you guys to get contacts as well. So if you guys have anybody that you would like to see at this meeting, we can get their information and send this out as well. Also, the invitation should be on the City of Terrell's like social medias and things like that.
Yeah, if you can think of anybody, council, that usually engages the city in these processes, please let Ian know, and so that we don't miss anybody. The last thing I want is for our residents to come in and say, hey, we didn't know about it. Well, we did everything we could to inform the community that this was happening and that they should engage and give us some feedback. Let us know.
Yes, so you all have my information. If you don't, Raylan does, and I would be happy to send out any information about this project that you would need.
I don't know if this is an Ian question, but I'm impressed that you talk to every business on Moore Avenue. Are you serious?
Yes, ma'am. And the
Wow.
businesses that were closed, we looked up their information and found either a phone number or a website, and we sent the invitation to them via email or left a voicemail informing them of this meeting.
That's impressive.
Thank you
I was in a meeting before with some of this town down stuff that's going on. Wasn't on the council, but I need to ask this question. With this streets, complete streets and all this, are any of the businesses gonna be impacted, whether, displaced or taken, or like, it's a massive thing in another area that's going on in the city where all those businesses were impacted? So that's my question. Anybody houses or anything being displaced?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So on Spur 226, there has not been any identification of any right-of-way or anything like that that's needed on Spur 226. On US 80, 4 of the options are all just within the right-of-way of US 80. The one that has implications for right-of-way and parcels that might need to be taken, that's going to be when you look at the one-way couplet. You can't build the one-way couplet unless you do some land acquisition, kind of sort of around Hattie, just north of 80, and kind of sort of around Delphine, just north of 80. So those are the 2 areas that have some parcels that would get impacted because you got to make those connections between 80 and Nash in order to make a one-way couplet feasible. So one of the things that happens during this public process is people be able to show up and say, hey, I love the one-way couplet, but I hate buying parcels, so I don't want to do it. Or somebody might show up and say, yeah, you know what? I really prefer such and such because the net benefit is, you know, whatever the public is thinking, and ultimately it will be a council decision. So that's the main thing. The 2 other things I want to not fail to mention here is that the quiet zone has an implication on Bowser. So if you go way over to the west side of this, you can see that one of the problems with Bowser right now is it's not really aligned as a straight visual line between the Southwest Christian College campus and US 80. So part of the proposal that's hard to see here, but the detailed shots of the quiet zones have this, and that is making a correct connection from Bowser going north means that Bowser has to be realigned, and I'll call it just a little bit more to the west. So there's land, there's parcels that would be impacted by that. And then on the far east side, you can see that green line that runs north up to the Terrell State Hospital. We include that line on the map, not necessarily because it's strictly part of the Complete Streets project, but because it's sort of an additional idea out there that is connected to our conversations with the state hospital about a new entryway for the state hospital. That green line on the far east side of the project runs over 2 privately owned parcels of undeveloped land and across some floodplain in order to reach the state hospital at a new entrance. So that's a quick overview of what we've identified thus far related to parcels.
When you take parcels, are any businesses that's existing and operating being affected by this couplet?
I'm definitely, when I say the word parcels, I'm talking about businesses.
At
Yes,
least
ma'am.
5 of
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
And that-
yeah.
that-
And I don't want to try to give you an exact list right now because see those curves on the one-way
I
couplet?
mean, long as it's not all of them. I mean, long as it's
No,
not
ma'am.
more than
No,
80
no,
or
no.
90% on Moore Avenue back here around Nash, I'm okay with a few parcels.
Yes,
As
ma'am.
long as it's not it's extensive like I've seen in the past.
No,
I'm
ma'am.
okay with a few parcels.
Yeah, you and I are talking the same language. There aren't any on 80.
Okay.
All of the parcels that would be impacted are along Bowser, along Hattie, along Delphine. Those are the ones that would have impact, just depending on which option comes up at the end of this thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a couple of follow-up questions. When you presented to the paddock board, I had a couple, you were able to tell me that 18 to 20 feet is, as far as parkway is standard. And then there's usually like a 4 feet medium that can go to between 1 feet and I can't recall how many feet as well, but I wanted to confirm that information. But more than anything, I believe we talked about the standard of the, what is the norm, the standard for the width of a sidewalk when we are looking at downtowns? And I believe you stated, Nathan, that it was about 21 feet.
Anywhere from 18 to 20 feet. And this graphic really shows this, and option A, when you've got 4 lanes of traffic and then you've got pedestrians right next to it, you're buffered by the parking today. So when you get rid of that parking, what is that buffer? Well, you've got 18 to 20 feet now to work with, where you might have that first 2 to 3 to 4 feet behind the curb that would be buffered by a row of trees or planters or some softscapes, so that you're not encouraging folks to walk right next to the curb. And what you're left with is about another 15 feet of flat, open walkway area from the front door, from the door thresholds out.
I think the other thing that I would say is a reason why Nathan's hesitating there is that you also have to take care of the vertical change problem that we have in our downtown that isn't the same in every downtown. As you know, we've got a couple of blocks where you can walk straight off of the curb or straight out of a parked car directly onto a sidewalk, directly into a building. But that's really the exception, right? If you think about being in front of Houston Smith's building or being in front of trailer, that's a good example. There's several places downtown where you got 2 or 3 steps to go up. The more you have to take care of a vertical change, the more difficult it is for Nathan to design that within just strictly 20 feet. So that's part of the really, really in-depth detail that we'll end up getting to as we go through the next couple of steps here.
Yeah, that was going to be a part of my question, because that's so difficult to navigate downtown as it is now, especially for our older citizens trying to get up those steps. Right there, I've seen so many people trip on them.
And
Yep.
Nathan, out of all the options that were presented, is there one option over the rest that slows down traffic the most?
That's a good question. I don't know that there is one over another that really slows the traffic. I think one thing you could do with any of the options is narrow the lanes, doing some pavement enhancements to create an environment that is not as car-centric, and by improving the pedestrian experience will naturally slow traffic really with any of the options.
Thank you. And as I have visited other downtowns, I'm always intrigued as to how popular the concept that was introduced during COVID, where you took some of the parking area in front of a business that was then converted into, seating, dining space. And I think about that as an option, and not so hesitant to give up some of that parking, knowing that, or if we have a plan in place to get additional parking elsewhere. And at the same time, I have the concern about whether that would be a good fit for our downtown, because it's on Highway 80 and because of the traffic that we tend to have, keeping those those visitors or those that are potentially sitting down in a dining area, if that were a concept that we were to follow, keeping them safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the representative photos that we'll show at the public meeting and we'll share with Raylan will show what that could look like in your downtown area if the parking's removed. I think there's some challenges too with parking next to a 4-lane roadway. When you open the doors, it's from a safety standpoint, yeah, it provides a buffer between the travel, the cars and the people, but to park there backing in and out next to a 4-lane road where you've got a lot of traffic, we're seeing a lot of downtowns where they are repurposing that parallel parking to widen the sidewalks, to have more room to make up that grade and provide more flat area for cafes and just improve the pedestrian experience.
Okay. And then my final question is for Ian. Ian, I heard you were out there canvassing today. You have talked to or visited, was it 300 homes?
300 homes, 71 businesses.
300 homes, 71 businesses. Are you out there by yourself? Do you have somebody that's Spanish speaking? How do you have this conversation with somebody that's Spanish speaking if you are out there by yourself?
Without a doubt. So Jerome Garza, our project manager, is actually leading a team of 6 1099s. 5 of those 1099s are bilingual. And so if somebody speaks Spanish, we have more than enough team members who are fluent in Spanish and able to help. All of our information, including our flyers, is in both English and Spanish. And when we hold our public meeting, we will have representatives there that will be able to translate everything that Kimberly Horn is saying into Spanish. And so that is one of our top priorities. I remember you bringing that to me and saying that was a key priority in getting this done. And so we are making sure everybody has the opportunity to learn about this project and to be at this meeting.
I appreciate that, and you make me a happy camper right now.
Thank you.
With the way that, concurring with the feedback that Councilmember Holmes Thomas shared about how much you're engaging and keeping all of our feedback in mind. One last question, follow-up to that.
Yes.
What are you wearing, or how can we identify that you're a member of JBJ Management and not, selling, not from an electric company out in the field?
We all have JBJ polos that we're wearing around. I have a picture on my phone. But I don't know if you want to see it. We're all in JBJ polos and jeans, and we're walking as a team, so we're walking in pairs, so people know this is not a one-off thing. This is actual group that is making sure that we want you here at the public meeting. If it's okay with the council, we could do City of Terrell shirt. We can make whatever uniform we like, but we stuck with JBJ because that's our company and our business. But we're able to make it whatever we want. If you wanted to say Downtown Complete Streets, we have a shirt company that makes our materials for us as well. So
that was first. Sometimes we get calls from community members, or as we're in the grocery store, and it's like, oh, were they wearing a polo and jeans? Were they in pairs? Did
Yes.
they try to, did they leave you a paperwork? Send me a photo of that, flyer as an
Yes.
example. So thank you for that.
no problem.
And lastly, from the mayor, have we engaged TxDOT in all of these different options already? And they've said they're good with it? I don't want us to be looking at something that
Mayor,
TxDOT's
you
not.
just-
A very active member of our
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, Mayor,
Yes.
Mayor, we were actually asked at the Paddock Board why it had taken so long. Paddock Board's very anxious to move forward on this, right? Paddock Board said, well, why is this taking so long to get to us? And the answer was, we just don't need to be showing anybody options that TxDOT will automatically say no to.
I agree.
So everything that is being shown, these roads don't belong to us. So in deference to not just the owner of the road, but in deference to those who can grant us money to build this stuff,
Right.
we're vetting with our grant agencies and our controlling agencies up front. So
Great.
absolutely.
All right, wonderful. Thank
They
you
giving
so
us-
much.
Have TxDOT given us any feedback on which one they like? Do they have any say with it being their roads, if it's one that's more conducive to what their, not mission, but whatever they do?
Yeah, I'll chime in. I mean, part of our initial homework was doing a lot of traffic study work that was in accordance with what TxDOT would require. And actually, that was one of the very first questions was, you're not proposing to take lanes away, right? It's still going to be a 4-lane road, even if it's split into one-way couplet. So fundamentally, we're not changing, and we're actually making sure that it can handle traffic today, but also for the next 20, 30, 40 years. So they asked what would the city like, and I think obviously the couplet comes with the most challenges because that splits up the TxDOT corridor and their plan, but
So what I'm
they
hearing,
all move the same amount of traffic.
what I'm hearing is TxDOT didn't have a preference based on their expertise and it being their road. They said, let the city decide. Is that what you're saying?
I think so.
Thank you.
Yeah, when you limit that question to the stuff we're showing here, we've got some flexibility there. We asked them a question about some bicycle issues. They were happy to eliminate a bicycle option that didn't quite make sense. And then if you were going to make it a one through lane, they wouldn't let you do it, so.
Yeah.
Well, I think with the growth, it's smart to have the traffic flows accurate, right? The last thing we need is to do something that's going to bottleneck and create a traffic problem for the city of Terrell. So,
I'll also say they also didn't propose that we make it a 6-lane roadway. We're constrained by the buildings, and that wasn't an ask at all.
okay, great. All right, anyone else?
I just had one last question. Do we have any kind of estimation on if we did the couplet, how is that going to impact the businesses in the area? So, because you now have traffic flowing both directions that see your business. if we do the couplet, you're only gonna have one direction seeing your business. Has there been any kind of estimation on that?
Very high level, I think it will impact the circulation through the downtown, but it'll also create some frontage along Nash to create even more of what you have along Moore today up along Nash. So haven't dived into it in a whole lot of detail, but the circulation would definitely change.
And I'd say that's part of the purpose of having these meetings, you know. Pick a downtown business off the top of your head at random and ask yourself, well, can I guess what they're thinking about one-way couplet versus one of the other options? I need to hear, how much do they value the parking in front of their business? What would they think if the left turn lanes weren't there? What would they think if it was one-way couplet? The experience of other downtowns that have gone to a one-way couplet has been really positive, but that doesn't necessarily mean that our local businesses will perceive it the same way. So we just need to get out there to the public and start getting that feedback.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Next on the item is 8.3, discuss hotel occupancy tax update. Hot presentation, and this is going to be our City Secretary, Don Stahl.
Mayor and council, on page 46, there is a hotel occupancy tax report, and I'll just go over this briefly. On the left-hand column, you can see the list of hotels in Terrell, and across the top, we have FY18 through FY22 revenue, and one column for each year will say revenue outside of the event center partnership, and then there's a column for revenue inside of the event center partnership. The hotels that are included in the event center partnership are Fairfield Inn, Hilton True, and La Quinta Inn and Suites. And you can see how revenue declined during COVID, and it seems to have come back and stabilized now. In the bottom part of the sheet are the long-term contract commitments that we paid. The event center partnership, we transfer that money at the end of each fiscal year into the Hotel Event Center Fund. The Convention and Visitors Bureau, we have a long-term contract with them for 5 years that started in October of 19, and that is 50%. We pay them 50% of the revenue outside of the Event Center Partnership every year. We also have a long-term contract with the BFTS as well, and it is a 10-year contract that began in October of 2019. And they get 1/3 of the revenue outside of the Event Center Partnership. And as you can see in FY18, we had other entities that we were still funding at that time that we're not now. You can see small amounts that we've paid on maybe Taco Festival or any other events that we've done, and then you have the total. And there's not a lot of unallocated funds left at the end of each year. And at the very bottom, you'll see the total revenue that has now been collected in the Event Center Partnership.
So Mayor, one of the reasons I wanted Dawn to go through that is to just show you that total down there at the bottom. The Event Center Partnership was started between the city and the TEDC in FY18, and so there's about $1 million in that fund right now. We'll collect $400,000 during the course of FY23. And I do think that as we do our negotiations with a hotel event center here, we're going to have opportunity to start spending that money soon. And I wanted you to have a chance to look at the numbers before I brought you any proposals on using some parts of that event center partnership funds on some upcoming work to get an event center to actually build here. So happy to have Dawn or I answer any questions. We wanted to show you the math before we started showing you the project.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Sims?
What kind of things can that money be used on? Give me maybe 2 or 3 specific things.
So hotel event center, you've got to have at least a 20,000 square foot event center. We think that we have a partner who will be working on that with us. There's a very long list of state law requirements associated with that. So you might say, okay, if we're going to build a 20,000 square foot event center, you could do parking related to that. You could do the event center itself. You could do a road next to it. You could do a water line next to it or a sewer line next to it. Just things that are strictly related to bringing a event center of the right size out of the ground.
Okay, thank you.
Dawn, I may have missed this, but can you or Mike indicate, for example, if we have expiration dates, like, upcoming renewal dates for any of the long-term contract commitments?
The Convention and Visitors Bureau, it expires on September 30th, 2024, and the BFTS will expire September 30th, 2029. It's a 10-year contract.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is our business item. Ms. Shumpert, would you read in 9.1, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight for discussion and consideration ordinance number 2954, authorizing a property tax reimbursement program for annexed grandfathered properties, an ordinance of the City of Terrell, Texas, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and enter into property tax reimbursement agreements for certain categories of property that the city may add to the city's corporate limits through annexation pursuant to City Resolutions 927 and 928, providing a severability clause and providing an effective date.
Thank you, sir. Council, we've looked at and discussed ordinance number 2954. Does anybody have any new questions for staff regarding the reimbursement program for the annexed properties?
So I just want to clarify. This says that if they sign this, they won't contest, I mean, it's not that they won't contest the annexation, but they won't be frivolous. I mean, what it's,
It would mean.
no, it's going to give them some
Councilwoman,
relief.
Yeah, it would mean that they would, if they sign the agreement and get the reimbursement, they would refrain from contesting the annexation.
Anyone else?
I am happy with this. Only thing I like about this is that it's that relationship piece in it to where we're trying to reach our community members. I'm reminded of what Keith Bell told me when I first got on the council a year and a half ago. He said, whatever decision you make, own it. And you were so complimentary last time that we won at the state level, at the Supreme Court.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think what we're doing is right. My concern is what I already told you about. Well, I don't know. It's just, I'm concerned with this because when we start making little deals, I mean, I don't know what the moral compass is. Like, how do we decide who we work these deals with versus other people we don't work those deals with? That's what I'm worried about just as a council member. So I'm gonna vote no on this item because I wanna own it. I'm doing what my parents taught me, what I teach my children, what I'm gonna teach my grandchildren, and what Keith Bell told me. Own it. I didn't make the decision to annex. I wasn't particularly personally involved, but as a council, I wanna own that decision, and I wanna deal with the consequences of annexation.
I respect what you're saying, but could I make one
Sure, you can.
additional comment? I understand where you're coming from, but we've tried and endeavored to be as consistent as we possibly could through this whole process. Now, there were properties, as you pointed out, Councilwoman, that were covered prior and by prior agreements. Yet, these prior agreements, now when these agreements expire, the agreements say they'll be voluntarily annexed. Well, the city is electing through staff to offer the very same reimbursement proceedings and measures for those folks as we're offering for these new people that are coming in. So we're being consistent all the way through. I understand what your concerns are, and I respect that, but I want you to know that we are trying to be consistent with and treat everyone the same.
No, we respect that.
My question is for council or Mike. This agreement, the way that, or this ordinance, the way that this ordinance is written, is it written to offer the tax reimbursement program for every single property moving forward, or what I'm saying is, are we requiring city staff and assuring that every single property that's grandfathered for potential annexation into the city is offered the conversation, or is it written in a way that city staff has the discretion on who they offer this to if they don't have an agreement already in place?
I'll just tell you flat out, if you pass it, then we're going to send it to every single property owner that we send an annexation notice to. Everybody will get a copy of it and have opportunity to sign it. And we'll just have an open door, and it will be up to them to come to us. We'll have mailed it to everybody, and if they wish to pursue it, they can. If they don't wish to pursue it, they don't have to. The offer will be made 100% consistently.
So what I'm hearing is, if this ordinance is voted in favor of, then the next step will be a letter in the mail to those landowners to offer the property tax reimbursement program.
Close. The next step actually would be that council would have to call a public hearing, setting dates for a public hearing for annexation. If you call a public hearing, then it is staff's job to send a letter to everybody. So step one, put the ordinance in place so that it's on the record books. Step two, a discretionary act by council. Call a public hearing and say we're annexing now. And the moment you call a public hearing and say, hey, we're going to have a public hearing on such and such a date, then it becomes staff job to mail a letter to everybody, and that letter would include a copy of this agreement.
Let me say too, Councilwoman, in anticipation that council might want to go this way, legal staff is prepared to initiate exactly the proceedings that Mr. Sims just talked about. In fact, we have processes in place right now that we would implement upon the calling of the public hearing.
So again, does anybody have any more questions directed at staff? Hearing none, is there a motion on ordinance number 2954?
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2954.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second?
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, and a second from Andrea Reese, District 5, to pass ordinance 2954 as presented. Is there any further discussion? At this time, the mayor would just like to engage the council and say, hey, you know what? We have thought this process through. This isn't the first time that we've addressed the annexation. We're being as fair to everybody that is going to be affected by the annexation. Again, my standpoint on everything is it's not their fault that the city's growing, but it's our responsibility to make sure that we control that growth in a way that it's best for the people that elected us as mayor and as council members. That's our role. So that's my comment. Does anybody have any other comments or questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
We have a 3-to-1 vote for passage. So
Voting on this one, Mr. Mayor?
should I or do I?
You can, certainly.
Well, but so I vote in affirmative. So I'm a yes.
4 to
So
1.
it's 4-to-1 vote passes. Ordinance number 2954 as presented. Next item on the agenda is 9.2.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we are to consider the impact fee update for the latest impact fee changes and updates.
Okay. McKeska.
Whatever.
Dawn, can you go to
I missed that. I was writing down.
Page
What did I
60.
miss? Go ahead.
68? Okay, yeah, so the item tonight is to discuss and consider the agreement, which starts several pages after this. Last week, when it was discussed, Freeze and Nichols representatives were here and talked about impact fees, and Steve presented the fact that we had a developer that came in 20 years ago, and we didn't really have a way to provide service or fund the project, and that kind of initiated this. So So these have been going on, the studies and having an ordinance on impact fees have been going on for close to 20 years now, okay? It's mandatory to update it every 5 years. So in the agreement that I believe, it's on page 70-something that starts, but, okay, go back to 68, please. No, okay, it's back over there. This is a summary slide that Freeze and Nichols put together that says this is what we're gonna look at. Okay, this is our scope of work. And so basically what's in the agreement talks about, in this study, is they're gonna take a look at the service areas, population, land use, and all that, and it's a projection over a number of years, and the impact that developments can have on roadways and costs and what we need to do to provide service. They break all of this down into service units. They look at water and sewer and the capacity and the impacts on the system. And then they have to follow, on the right side of that slide, you can see this chapter 395 of the Texas Local Government Code. They have to follow all the requirements of that. When you have impact fees, there's very specific requirements. Freeze and Nichols, they're experts on this. They've been doing this for a long time for us. And so this is the tasks that's in that agreement. And what they have proposed to us, and we've discussed it with them and looked at it, is a fee not to exceed $149,700. This is, again, not to exceed. If I recall correctly, the last time they actually invoiced a little less than what the fee was set because they're estimating the effort required, and it's going to depend on projects and number of developments and assumptions and all the changes that might go in. But that's the recommendation from staff, is to authorize Mr. Sims to enter into an agreement with Freeze and Nichols. And again, not to exceed $149,700. And this is about a 6 or 7 month study, somewhere around October, November timeframe. They'll have a final report. One thing at the bottom of this slide, it talks about a CIAC recommendation, which is a representative that you add to the P&Z members as a committee to review this. And the recommendations and kind of look at the fees that they propose. There's maximums that are set. And council is responsible for approving a person to add, and it has to be somebody with real estate development or construction experience, something like that. So there's a resolution that'll be forthcoming, but that's a separate item. But that's what that is referring to, just as a reminder that was discussed last week. So if y'all have somebody that you recommend, let us know. We can take a look at that and work with y'all on it. But basically, that, as I mentioned, that's the recommendation for tonight.
All right. Mark, thank you. So would it be fair to say that without the fees that were passed in 2004, that our growth would have been impacted we'd had less development, I think?
Development, man, this is a happening area, and it started coming. What I would say is the fees are there to assess and take pressure off of all of the existing customers for it. But it also provides, frankly, kind of a leverage in looking at things when you're looking at development agreements, because developers put a lot of money into this. And it depends on how the costs are associated. So I would say it's more, and Mr. Sims deals with the development agreements more, I would say it's more of a potential opportunity to encourage development in a sense.
But it's a shared cost where that our citizens aren't paying.
That is
picking
correct.
up the entire.
Yeah, I'll say
That is
this way.
correct.
When you
That's
have
the
impact,
intent.
when you have impact fees in place, it gives you the opportunity to go to the developer and say, look, you need to pay for X, Y, and Z. And often they'll build a thing and receive a credit because they built the thing. So we've got a developer now who is going to run off and build a section of Windsor. Great, we need a section of Windsor built. When we calculate their impact fees, there'll be a credit of those. So we wouldn't do as well with our developers requiring them to build the roads, the water, and the sewer we need that is off-site to their development if we didn't have an impact fee program in place. And likewise, we often have opportunity to talk to a developer and say, hey, you just need to be able to make these payments, and then we collect that money and we can use that in various places in the city that we need to make roadway, water, or sewer improvements. So it's a way of making sure that the new growth shares part of the load of the infrastructure cost of the city.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. McCaskill on this item?
Mr. McCusker, pretty much the 149,700, that's pretty much ironclad in terms of the areas here that the study overview is going to cover? Or there possibly can be some other hiccups that can come up throughout the project that they would probably ask the council for more?
No, I do not anticipate that at all. Like I said, Friesen Nichols has been through this with us and numerous clients.
Pros, yeah.
And when they develop these lists of tasks, they develop it under what is required. When they look at the requirements of that Chapter 395 of the Texas Local Government Code, they say, okay, here's the things that have to be done, and there's certain methodologies to calculate all of this, and they know that, and so they put that in the scope. We don't anticipate any other change. Short answer. No.
This is just for the study. This is not to, are they gonna give us a recommendation on what we should charge with this?
Yes, ma'am.
Make
The-
sure they're
yeah,
gonna give us a recommendation of what
there-
we should charge after they've done that study for 149,000.
That's correct. There's a maximum, the law it sets a maximum based on the calculations. Council can set it at that or a lower amount, depending on how we want to do it. They mentioned last week for the roadways 5 years ago or 4 years ago, there's an escalation each year on the roadways. Water and sewer stayed the same. You can, depends on how you want to handle that and adjust it and stay below the maximum fee. So,
And your CIAC will actually make a recommendation on the dollar amount to you, so you'll see that
Yes.
coming from that
Yes.
group, yeah.
that's
Anyone else?
correct.
All right, thank you, Mike. So we're going to consider entering into an agreement with Friesen Nichols for the amount of not to exceed $149,700. Is there a motion?
Yes, Mayor. I make a motion to authorize city manager to enter into agreement with Friesen Nichols and not to exceed an amount of $149,700.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Andrea Reese, District 5, to enter into agreement with Friesen Nichols in an amount not to exceed $149,700. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 10.1, consent agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight on second reading ordinance number 2955, an ordinance of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, amending Chapter 3, Animal Control, Section 25, Animal Control Shelter Advisory Committee of the Revised Code of Ordinances of the City of Terrell, providing for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. This comes to you tonight on second reading.
All right. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the mayor will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Andrea Reese, District 5, to pass consent agenda, ordinance number 2955 as presented. Is there any further discussion? I didn't see, do I need to wait for her? I didn't know she stepped.
Well, she
Councilwoman.
said she had a dinner date with her husband.
Oh,
So she's
she's gone, okay. So, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 11.1, is to receive a report from Terrell Police Department monthly. I'll just tell y'all to look at that. If you have any questions, reach out to staff, and they'll get back with you. Do we have any consent? We have
I
any?
was told that if I had an
Adjourn.
executive session item tonight, that would be fun.
Okay, so we have no executive session. We are adjourned.